Welcome again to another interesting video talk. And today we have quite a mastermind as our guest, Mr. Ian Choo, the partner and co-founder of Blue Carbon Gold and one of my favorite thinkers of our time, Mr. Supermind. Ian, it's wonderful to see you today and thank you for joining the program.
Thank you for having me, Sini. You're too kind.
And today we're going to talk about some alternatives, how to look at the world today, because we all hear quite devastating, maybe even scary news of our time now is the beginning of the year 2026, January. So for the beginning of the year, we would like to give some alternative thoughts with Ian today. Now, Ian, if you would be flying in space and looking at the planet, how would you want to see our times today in regarding what they are and what they could be?
That's a big question, Sini. I was just, just to answer your question, I was just having a talk with my friend who's an architect. And what he said was pretty much in his field of architecture, the last 30, 40 years, architecture really has been about building things in cities. It's really been about people migrating from rural settings and going into cities and making them a little bit more crammed. And he expressed that he believes that the next wave of development will be different. He believes that there is a growing consciousness of people who are choosing to live not in rural settings, but on in the fringes of cities, and that the next wave of human development will be a very different setting from what got us here. So, to your question about what I would like to see from space, I would like to see a bigger diversity of people exploring life, maybe with the support of a city, but on the fringes with nature, experimenting with different models of how we create, how we live together, how we have we rediscover a sense of community alongside nature. And this is a theme that I seem to be getting over and over again in different friends and different professionals who I talk to.
When we regard the topic of peace, how would you see peace and business, blue economy, the benefit of the nature, the benefit of business as well, and a green economy go together in the future?
You know, one of my favorite thinkers is a very published writer called Jeremy Rifkin. And Jeremy Rifkin has written a diversity of books, right? Nearly 20 to 30 books in his illustrious career. But the one that struck me most is where he used the term biosphere consciousness. What he really believes is that uh, if the human story is about expanding human consciousness, we've gone from living in our home, our village, our town, then into our city, that we're reaching really a point where human consciousness is able to conceive our relationship with things that are even bigger, our relationship with our immediate environment, with the animals that we share the planet with, the impact of how we live on the atmosphere, on the oceans, and also the things we do and how it affects carbon in the atmosphere, just just to name. So he believes that we are on the cusp of getting to biosphere consciousness, where humanity is able to conceive on our relationship with a much wider array of things than we've traditionally been able to. That gives me some hope.
That sounds amazing. And I wish businesses are listening to this video, like those who are looking for new directions, where to go in the future. And Maybe they could be even more courageous in their decisions and not be so conservative and thinking that they have to do the suitable solution and the politically correct solution, but they could be very brave and truly creative about making innovative blue economy and green economy decisions. How would you recommend for them to invest in the future to nature?
Well, hmm, if you take the idea, if Jeremy Rifkin is correct that biosphere consciousness is emerging, somewhat all the opportunities that arise are almost natural if people are able to conceive of that relationship with nature in their heads. Traditional economics, where most business unfortunately looks at, believes that we are Homo economicus, that we exist on planet Earth to maximize gain for ourselves without regard for other people or the home that we live in. I think that's a rather flawed and really incomplete assumption on how we see the world. I mean, and you can even see this in policy, right? I mean, we're talking the you, policy always lags rather than leads. You're starting to see people in developed countries asking themselves questions about how their consumption patterns are affecting places, living habitats as far as the Amazon, right? They're talking about, okay, is the things that I buy incentivizing deforestation? What is my carbon footprint? The things that I consume, what incentives is it creating for pillaging nature or putting carbon up in the atmosphere? We're very far away from, I think, a complete coherent set of solutions, but it gives me some hope that people are asking the right questions.
How would you suggest that many people in business life and investing and education and environmental influencing could live a free life so that
Mm.
they could teach a free lesson, they could live themselves freely and not feel that when they go to the office, okay, this is the office from 9 until 4, but they can actually be free thinkers and have an influence to business life.
You know, Let me answer your question a little bit indirectly. So I spent the last 20 years of my life working with and coaching other entrepreneurs. And the first question I always ask when somebody says they want to ask to start a business, my first line of questioning is, what is your pet injustice in the world? And they usually are really quite surprised by what that means. They're like, no, is it what I do for fun? I said, no, no, no. What is something that you see in the world that you feel is unjust till the point that you need to do something about it? And usually, when you get people down this line of questioning, it's usually quite revealing because something that moves their sense of justice usually is not a bad place to start thinking about how you want to spend your time and how do you want to create value. If you feel that something is unjust, it really means that it demands a solution. And all the examples, I mean, to move into the concrete, if you've seen brands like Patagonia, all right, who what we call are mission driven, they've usually taken a sense of what is wrong with the world and they've tried really to build a set of values or a business around a sense of what is wrong with the world. I wish more individuals and by implication businesses would have the courage to start thinking about their businesses in light of that.
You would be a great advisor for many companies to have a new openness towards modern thinking of our time and to combine these things. And my personal question is to help people release fear. And I often talk of the acceptance between the unseen and seen in their own spirit, like that they can have permission to speak about their dreams and their channeled information, what they receive, because I see it as a natural part of human life as a very spiritual person as well. What would you like to say about this to those who do not believe in these things and maybe could benefit from that in business?
Well, I don't think we're in the business of convincing people that there's something greater than themselves. Because I think even in the heart of most of the hardened cynics, even if they feel that they have to take care of themselves, somewhere in their nagging sense, they kind of know that's a incomplete explanation of what it means to be human, to be sentient and conscious. It's a very incomplete explanation of what it means to have their time on earth, defined by that. It is my personal belief that I think if you look at all the great religions of the world and some of the most enlightened people I know, the one thing that they, in common that they shared is a belief of the value of service of something greater than themselves. And what I would say to these people is that you need to find that 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 message that was only meant for you, not meant for anybody else. What is that one thing that moves your sense of justice, fires up your motivation, and is able to say that this is worth doing because you're in service something greater than yourself?
What would your advice be to many countries who have a really, really different culture in between each other and different value system and different motivations and different needs? How could they find peace with one another?
Ooh, that's a rather large question, but I'm personally Singaporean. I've lived in the Nordics in Europe, and now I live in Portugal. And having been through quite a number of countries as a traveler, I think first you're struck by how different, human beings, we tend to accentuate our differences rather than what binds us. But a theme that I keep getting across from people who have traveled and gone across borders is that they reach a point and they're struck by how similar we are. And to your point, I think if more people are able to conceive of themselves as part of this biosphere consciousness, because the biosphere doesn't divide by countries, right? If they see themselves equally in service of causes that are greater than themselves, I think it's far easier to live without the anxiety that comes from feeling that your destiny is only to belong to a very small part of planet Earth. And that's where the source of the anxiety comes from.